This is CBC Vancouver News.
An avalanche has killed a Nelson police officer and critically injured another in the Kootenays. This as forecasters warn of hazardous conditions. 3 people are found dead in a home in Surrey. Police say it appears they are all related. And a new tax credit aims to help multiple generations live together.
That's not going to be an initiative to anybody to get together and do it.
But how far will it go in our pricey market? Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We begin with breaking news out of the Kootenays. Officials in Nelson say an avalanche has killed 1 police officer and critically injured another. It happened just north of Nelson, near Caslow. The police board says the pair of officers were hit by the avalanche while snowmobiling. It's not clear when exactly this happened, nor if the officers were on duty at the time. Nelson's police chief is expected to provide more information at a news conference in the morning. The avalanche forecast for the Caslow area is rated considerable. Now, that deadly slide comes as BC faces its most dangerous avalanche risk in decades. There are many peaks of concern in our province because of weak snow, and the conditions are being compared to the deadly 2003 season, which saw at least 14 people killed. The CBC's John Hernandez has more from a survivor.
The most important message is that I sensed the tragedy coming.
20 years later, the conditions on the mountainside are still seared into Ken Wiley's memory.
The avalanche danger rating was sitting at around considerable. There was a deep snowpack instability, and we wanted to go skiing.
He was in a large group of skiers ascending the La Traviata couloir near Revelstoke. They pushed on despite dangerous conditions.
The skiers went out when the risk of an avalanche was rated considerable.
My body was screaming at me that morning, like I didn't want to be there.
An avalanche came crashing down. Wiley and 12 others were buried. 7 of them died.
People say, oh, well, I'm wearing an avalanche transceiver, we're carrying shovels, we're okay. But being buried is totally out of bounds, right? Because effectively what it is that your chances are 50-50.
With the 20th anniversary of the deadly tragedy just days away, current conditions atop many BC mountains are eerily similar.
We have these buried weak layers which form during periods of relative drought over the past few months. The last time we saw a snowpack of this sort of magnitude, many professionals are reaching back to 2003.
Avalanche Canada is warning of considerable risks along the coast and moderate risk in the interior and the northwest region. Those taking to the backcountry are advised to think twice before taking on steep terrain.
The best thing that backcountry users can do is to manage their terrain. So this snowpack is not going to disappear anytime soon. These weak layers will persist for quite some time now.
Have a trip plan, and if conditions do look dangerous, trust your gut and don't be afraid to speak out.
Be socially courageous. Like if your friends are pushing you into terrain that you think isn't good, say no. No, our plan was to stay out of, steeper terrain.
Decisions that can hopefully prevent future tragedies atop these mighty peaks. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
And coming up later in our show, we're going to take you out to show you how to use avalanche equipment. To Surrey now, where police say 3 people were found dead inside a home earlier today. As Liam Britton tells us, they're all believed to be related.
A Christmas tree still stands inside, but police tape was wrapped around the utility poles and trees, and squad cars have been parked in front under a light rain. Surrey Mounties say officers discovered the bodies of 3 people inside the home around noon yesterday. They say all 3 are believed to be related, and no one else was at the property. Neighbors tell CBC News a friendly couple lived in the home, and 1 or 2 of the residents were tutors. Several people stood outside the home crying, but declined to speak. The Integrated Homicide Investigation Team is now in charge. Police say they don't think the public is at risk. They're asking for anyone with information to contact them. Liam Britton, CBC News, Surrey.
A big police scene outside a downtown Vancouver pub earlier tonight. The VPD says they arrested someone seen carrying a gun inside a bar near Granville and Robson. The force says officers fired a beanbag shotgun during their arrest. A suspect has been taken to hospital to be treated for non-life-threatening injuries. To healthcare now, the BC government says it is making it easier for foreign-trained nurses to work here. As Mira Baines shows us, hefty financial support is also being extended to nurses who left the job and now want to return.
As BC continues to grapple with the need for nurses, the province says it wants to remove barriers in hopes of bolstering the healthcare system.
Well, right now, candidates in this scenario are waiting 3 years to be granted registration. Our goal is to bring it down with these reforms to between 4 to 9 months.
Premier David Eby says for nurses trained abroad, the province plans to spend $1.3 million to streamline the licensing process.
Whether a nurse was trained in our province or not, we're ready to welcome those who are ready to care for British Columbians.
This pediatric nurse from the Philippines says she managed to navigate the system, but others have not.
In the unit I work now, I am the only IEN. However, a lot of our clerks, our care aides, were all nurses back in their home countries.
For Canadian-trained nurses, the government will offer financial support of up to $4,000 to cover applications, assessments, and eligible travel costs for current nurses to re-enter the system. There will also be up to $10,000 in bursaries for any additional education they may need to get back to work. Despite nursing shortages, the province is opening hospital emergency operations centers to help deal with the highly transmissible COVID variant XBB 1.5. Health Minister Adrian Dix says 10,000 people were in acute care across the province as of Thursday, up 6% from New Year's Eve.
Historically high levels of people in hospital, that we're facing the most challenging period in healthcare, which is typically January and February. We're in the midst of a respiratory illness season and a pandemic.
The president of the BC Nurses Union, meanwhile, says vacancies abound.
As of this past spring, 5,200 vacancies here in BC, and by 2031, we need 26,000 new nurses.
For its part, the province says 2,000 nurses are in the registration and assessment process now and could be working in 90 days. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
A new federal tax credit designed to help seniors and adults with disabilities live with their families launched this month. The new multi-generational home renovation tax credit aims to help families add a secondary unit to existing homes. But as Belle Puri reports, it may not be a catalyst for any serious change.
The newly completed Lane House is an affordable option for adult children priced out of real estate. It's also a sign that multi-generational living is taking hold.
I think because of the cost of living in Vancouver, people are having to look at different and more creative ways of trying to find ways for young families to live in this neighborhood.
To that end, last spring, the federal government announced a new multi-generational home renovation tax credit to encourage more Lane houses and suites. Starting this year, families can claim a one-time 15% tax credit for up to $50,000 in renovation and construction costs of a secondary unit. The most one gets back is $7,500.
The tax credit that's being offered doesn't quite make a dent.
Henry Belisle's family-owned construction company has been doing home reno since 1985. At best, he says $50,000 could spruce up an out-of-date suite.
I think the tax credit applies really well to that, because what you're really looking to do is to update the infrastructure of the space, whether that's fireproofing, having proper heating and cooling and control of water, for example. And that could be reasonably done within that budget.
Anything more? Not so much.
Tax credits, they fall into the category of, this is welcome, it's better than nothing, but they generally don't fundamentally make something unaffordable affordable.
The average cost of a Lane house is $500,000. $7,500 covers 1.5%.
That's not going to be an initiative to anybody to get together and do it. That's not going to work. It's just not very much money.
The Ford family doesn't qualify for the refundable tax credit. It's available only if the unit is occupied by seniors or adults with disabilities. The Fords built the Lane house for their daughter and partner, and they don't plan to trade places for at least another 15 years. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
To other news now, a Metro Vancouver pastor is facing numerous charges after alleged sexual assaults against children. Police say multiple reports of alleged incidents and a year-long investigation led to the arrest of Pastor Edwin Alvarez in Saanich last week. The alleged incidents happened over a 4-year period starting in 2017 when Alvarez was pastor of a small, unnamed Metro Vancouver church.
People often take on leadership roles or roles where they have power and authority. They use that to gain the trust of families and their victims. They oftentimes will use those roles to manipulate people, and then when the opportunity arises, they abuse vulnerable children.
The 45-year-old was arrested in Saanich last week and charged with 3 counts of sexual interference and 3 counts of sexual assault. Police say there could be more victims and are asking anyone with information to come forward. The man charged in the stabbing death of his wife at their Surrey home last month has now appeared in court. Navinder Gill is charged with second-degree murder in Harpreet Gill's killing on December 7th. Police were called to their Newton home that evening and found the 40-year-old mother of 3 suffering from numerous stab wounds. Gill later died in hospital.
At this point, if we take in consideration Canadian laws, innocent until proven guilty, so he is maintaining his innocence at this point in time.
It's unclear how Navinder Gill will plead. He will be back in court February 10th. A 40-year-old man has died in hospital from his injuries after being stabbed outside a shelter in Vancouver last night. The victim was attacked during a fight with another person. It happened outside his home on Yukon Street in the Fairview neighborhood.
We don't believe this was random. And there's no indication that it was a stranger attack or that it was unprovoked. We believe there was an altercation between 2 people now.
The suspect ran away after the stabbing, and so far, no arrests have been made. A Port Moody couple's dream wedding may be on the rocks after the BC Supreme Court ruled their Ucluelet venue can no longer hold big events. Marion Dawson and Brendan Crosby looked at the lodge at Terrace Beach for their wedding last May. They booked, I should say, but they're now scrambling to find a replacement venue. Neighbors lodged an official complaint about a planned expansion at the property and the resulting noise that it might bring. The court agreed, leaving the couple heartbroken. The venue isn't allowed to fulfill its existing business contracts. A surprising find from UBC researchers. They say sea sponges off the BC coast block some COVID-19 infections. A global team of researchers led by UBC scientists analyzed a catalog of more than 350 compounds derived from natural sources. That includes plants, fungi, and marine sponges. The aim was to find new antiviral drugs that can be used to treat COVID variants like Omicron.
These compounds are effective in blocking the infection of the virus from the different variants of the COVID-19. So these compounds block the infection, so we cannot see more virus in the cells after a few days. So they are very efficient because we need to use very small amount of these compounds to block completely the infection of the virus in the cells.
Researchers say the results are encouraging, but there is much more that has to be done before an antiviral medication from them could be developed. Among the most recent changes to BC housing in 2023 is landlords will now have to pay interest on damaged deposits they collect from renters. It's calculated at 4.5% below the prime lending rate. This makes the interest rate payable on security and pet deposits at 1.95%. If there is damage and a landlord wants to make any deductions to that deposit, they must first ask the tenant to agree. But interest will still be calculated on the original deposit before deductions. Still, interest is calculated on the full deposit, as we said, before deductions. Interest has not been applied to rental deposits since 2009.
Can I get a probe right there? I've got a strike.
Coming up, we go out with search and rescue crews to demonstrate how avalanche beacons are used to help keep you safe. That story next. Hello to everyone watching on our commercial-free live stream. Thanks for being here. A first-year engineering communications class at the University of Prince Edward Island recently got to take part in a competition riding their own handmade go-karts. The contest wasn't about speed or aerodynamics. It was about teamwork.
So we built these cars all by hand ourselves, and then we just took them down the track and see which one's the farthest.
Let's go!
So you have to remember, these are first-year students. They never did this before. They are cutting, they are welding, they are assembling. People think that is about the car. It's not about the car. It's all about how they communicate to make that complex project to actually work.
I found it funny at first that a design class was a communication course, but now as I look at it, it's not about just building the car. It's about interacting with different people, different cultures.
We're learning how to work with a team, so it's never been just one person with you know, a set of tools and wood making a car. Like, everybody is playing to their own individual strengths, and everybody has had a part in making the car. And not everybody's a builder, but everybody has been a huge part of our building process.
Communication is the base of what an engineer does.
Our program is called Communications, and I've realized why. We were able to build some pretty cool projects in a car. Hopefully we'll win. We just thought, well, may as well just call it the FSDE Taxi.
I'm the driver of the FSD Taxi. Well, we managed to come in first with a surprising victory. It was really fun, and we managed to make it out first.
They have to understand other people, different gender, ethnicity, background, talking to them. It is actually a life project that goes through the entire semester. It's actually beautiful to see comes to life.
Back to our top story now. BC facing its most dangerous avalanche risk in decades. And just tonight, we've learned that a police officer in Nelson has been killed in a slide. Another is in critical condition. But there are tech solutions that can help people keep people safe. Backcountry explorers have relied on avalanche beacons for years. We visited the Avalanche Beacon Training Park to learn more.
So we'll come on over here, open up our transceiver box, and turn on the time dial. All right, we'll flip on transceiver and switch over to search mode on my transceiver here, and I've got a signal 41 meters away. We'll start running.
An Avalanche Transceiver Park is a whole set of equipment where we have some modified Avalanche transceivers. They're not cordless, so they have cords, all interlinking themselves to a mastermind box so that we can flip on one or more and activate them and practice finding them.
Can I get a probe right there? All right, we got a strike. All right, so we get out our shovel and dig that out if it was a real scenario.
Each transceiver emits signals that travel out 360 degrees, and you use your personal transceiver, switch it to search, and hone in on a signal, get you closer and closer and closer until you can use your probe to do the real fine pointing. Most people don't take the time to practice with their Avalanche transceiver often enough, so it's important to get out, practice, actually use this skill because they're life-saving. If you or your buddy don't rescue someone within 10 minutes, your chance of survival after a burial is drastically decreased. So you want to be fast, you want to be comfortable, and you want to be competent.
Still with the outdoors, a collaborative skiing and storytelling project in Kimberley is aiming to get kids moving and reading. As the CBC's Corey Bullock reports, the new ski story program at the Kimberley Nordic Club is encouraging literacy and activity through the story of the Gruffalo.
Every day, Kootenay kids head outside to play. It's a common occurrence to see families on the slopes on the weekend, but a new program at the Kimberley Nordic Club combines skiing with a story.
Terrible teeth and his terrible jaws.
The Nordic Club and Kimberley Public Library have come together to present an interactive storytelling of the popular children's book, The Gruffalo. And what do you think about combining a ski with a story?
I love it.
The two organizations hope to encourage a combination of physical activity and literacy within their youngest user groups.
Being physical in the world allows us to engage in all the senses provide, and we then are curious about what the world is and what's going on out there. So I think the combination of physical activity allows sort of that curiosity to then reinforce reading.
The Gruffalo is told across 12 boards stationed along a popular 2-kilometer cross-country ski trail.
You know, the mandate of the library is to promote our services and promote literacy in fun and engaging ways, and often that comes outside of the traditional walls of the library. And
it's a unique project they hope will have a lasting impact.
Kids won't necessarily know that they're learning and reading, and then they're just out to have a good time.
It's also seen as a way to get children out and engaging in the community.
Pandemic was really difficult and very isolating for lots of people, including families. So this was a priority for us to open up library services again and let people know that there's different ways of using the library.
And what better way to get kids outside to play than with a ski and a story. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
We get a brief break from the rain coming up, but it is brief. Kuljeet will have your BC-wide forecast after this.
It started about 20 minutes after midnight. 2 inmates, reportedly armed with knives, overpowered their 2 guards. Then, using the guards' keys, they released 11 other prisoners and fled the jail. The guards weren't hurt, but were left locked in cells.
The alert wasn't put out until at least 20 minutes to half an hour after the escape. It wasn't discovered at least until 20 minutes, half an hour.
The 13 escapers had a good head start. By daybreak 5 hours later, they had apparently split up. There were separate reports of cars stolen from neighborhoods around the prison.
3 guys came out from behind and ripped our doors open.
Burnaby RCMP are piecing together fragments of information, assembling profiles of each of the men. They range in age from their early 20s to late 30s. All are considered dangerous, held temporarily at the Ocala jail for crimes ranging from assault to murder. It was mid-afternoon before the people who run the prison would speak to reporters, and even then, there was little new information.
Did they go over the fence?
This we don't know, and of course the investigation will tell us further about that.
It's been a bad week at Ocala. Last Sunday, inmates fought with staff, attacked them with broom handles, and set fires. Then on Monday, a search of their cells and belongings turned up a number of weapons. Those incidents are still under investigation, yet until this morning, prison officials felt they had things back under control at Ocala. 4 of the escaped prisoners have now been recaptured. 9 others are still at large. While the search for them continues, the search for clues as to how they escaped has produced stunning results. Officials at Ocala admit the escape could have been avoided. 2 inmates were able to get out of their cells because the doors had been left open. The guards on shift at the time knew the doors were open and yet did nothing about it.
Some security procedures that are standard weren't followed.
He's talking about the doors.
Yes, they could have been closed.
And they didn't close them?
That's right.
Okay, that sounds like negligence.
That could well be. But again, how they were opened is yet to be determined.
The Guards Union called an emergency meeting this morning, apparently anticipating accusations of negligence against its members. Already it is arguing the section of the prison where the escape happened was understaffed, that the guards on duty were inexperienced. Ocala is an old and controversial prison. Over the years, there have been a number of riots here. The jail is scheduled to be replaced. The mayor of the town surrounding Ocala says that can't happen soon enough.
I mean, people want it out for a whole variety of reasons, and I guess this points out the major reason for not wanting it in a residential area.
Whether the guards or the administration is finally to blame, prison officials admit the escape is entirely the responsibility of prison staff. By the time it's all over, it's expected someone will lose their job over this. Keith Boak, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Ring in the Year of the Rabbit with CBC Vancouver at the annual Chinatown Spring Festival Parade on Sunday, January 22nd. Join us along the parade route and celebrate the Lunar New Year with fun and festivities for the whole family. Enjoy traditional lion and dragon dances, marching bands, and martial arts performances. Learn more at cbc.ca/BC.
Last year, BC conservation officers received tens of thousands of calls about human-wildlife encounters. Some were unique and others more comical than others. Of the 10 most unusual calls to the service tip line last year, one included a peacock poppin'. The bird entered a home through an open door, but the caller said their grandfather wouldn't tell it to leave because the weather was bad outside. Another caller reported black and gray animals that flew by so fast they couldn't be identified. Well, a third was concerned that a ram in the area didn't have a mate. That's kind. Officers are reminding the public that their hotline should only be used when public safety is at risk.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Our BC-wide weather forecast now with Kuljeet Kaila. Kuljeet, our umbrellas, the Gore-Tex, everything's been getting a bit of a workout, but we may be able to use our sunglasses soon. Is that right?
Yes, we're going to be getting a little bit of a break from all this rain we've had, and we've had quite a bit of it. We're going to start to dry out about tomorrow morning. It's going to start, so still some showers overnight, and there's a wind warning as well along most of the coast for Vancouver Island. We could see winds of up to 80 kilometers an hour overnight tonight and into parts of tomorrow as well. Rain for the coast as well for Prince Rupert tomorrow, -4, 8 degrees in Port Hardy, and then sunshine for the rest of the province, -1 in Prince George. It'll be cold, but some sun coming out there. 3 degrees for Williams Lake and Kelowna, and Victoria will see some sunshine as well tomorrow, as will we later Tuesday morning when the rain stops, and it's going to stick around for a couple of days. Today's high was 8 degrees, a couple of degrees above the average for this time of year, and if you really felt it today, very humid out there. It's very muggy. Our humidity is at very high range right now as well, 78%, which is pretty extreme. 11 degrees was the last high record set back in 1953. -10 was the low in 73. And this rain that I'm talking about, the break starts Tuesday morning, lasts until about Thursday morning, and then we're going to get a lot more rain. There's another system moving in place later on Thursday, bringing about 30 to 40 millimeters of rain, rain again for Friday, another 20, and then showers, light showers for the weekend, on and off for Saturday and Sunday, and then more rain coming our way for Monday as well. So the next 2 days, enjoy the sunshine.
Good dose of vitamin D coming up.
Yes.
Going to be nice. Thanks, Kuljeet.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. It begins tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Good night.